All right, welcome to a new demonstration in Onshape. Today we're going to be creating this really cool looking fidget spinner that is extremely geometric. If you look at the sketch, you see that there's all types of dimensions and construction lines. So we're going to work through this one by one, but you're going to be using a whole bunch of these sketch tools that will be on your vocab quiz. And then we're also going to be using the extrude feature tool. I'm going to be showing you one new feature tool called the fillet feature tool. So similar to the fillet sketch tool, it allows you to kind of round those sharp edges, but this time it allows us to do that for three-dimensional objects. So let's go ahead and get started by creating a new document in Onshape and naming it correctly. So remember, it's your class abbreviation underscore. This document is going to be called the fidget spinner, and then underscore your last name. All right, once we've created that, the first thing we need to do is we actually need to import the image that you should have downloaded before starting this video. So in the Google Classroom assignment, there's a blueprint of the fidget spinner that gives you all the dimensions. That is what you should have downloaded first. If you did that, then when you click on import here, you should have that in your downloads. And if you open that, you see that it actually pops up down here. So we're not actually going to be tracing this at all. This sketch is not necessarily to scale, but we're going to have it in this document just so we can quickly refer back to all of these numbers, because we're going to have to set these dimensions, and it would be kind of annoying to have to go back to Google Classroom every time. So right now it's just in here. If we want to reference it, we just click over to this tab and we can see. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing we need to do is we need to hide the front and the right planes because we're not going to be using those. We're just going to be sketching on the top plane. So let's jump to the top plane and create a new sketch on that top plane. Okay, so if you look at the blueprint here, you can see that it actually, this fidget spinner is made up of 4 different circles here. And then it looks like we have a circle on the outside, so this 26.4. That's the same size as the outside circle over here. And then we have some arcs, and the arcs have a radius of 15.53. So we're going to start with this very center circle, and then we're going to kind of build out from there. So if we look, the center circle, which is the same thing as this inside circle, has a radius of 22.4 millimeters. So when we go in here, we're going to create a center point circle, and we're going to do that right at the origin. And then we can choose dimension or press the D key and dimension. So because we're dimensioning the outside of the circle, it's just 2 clicks, and it was 22.4. So 22.4 is the radius of that center circle. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to copy this because we know how to do a linear pattern, and we're going to copy it a specific distance vertical from where it's at right now. So if we look, you can see that this circle up here, it is 26.71. So all of the outside circles are 26.71 millimeters away, and they have the exact same radius. So the 22.4 millimeters is the same radius for all of them. So if we go in here and we click on our shape, and then we click on the linear pattern, that will allow us to create the linear pattern. Now the default is to go 3 to the right, so 1, 2, 3, and 0 up, so just 1 copy up. We're going to change that. So we only want 1 going side to side, but up we want 2. So we want basically 2 copies of this vertically, and we want them to be a specific distance apart. Now this 25, we don't want it to be 25, we actually want it to be 26.71. So we're going to change that. Oh, looks like I need to do my linear pattern again. So change this to 1. Change this to 2, and then the distance is 26.71. So again, that was just, and then to save that, you need to click out. So that was just doing a linear pattern and setting it a specific distance away from where we've already created it. Okay, so after we've created that next circle, then the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're actually going to want to create the outer circle around it. So if you look at this blueprint here, you can see that there's another circle around the outside, and that circle has a radius of 26.4 millimeters. So if we go back, we can create another center point circle, but this time we're going to center it at the center of the other. So we're going to create a concentric circle, and if we go out, Doesn't matter how big we make it because we're going to dimension it. So dimensioning it, again, it's 26.4 for the outside. So if we go to dimension, or we press D, click on the outside, 26.4 is our outer radius. Okay, so now we've got kind of the foundation for this fidget spinner. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to make copies of this, so we have the kind of the bottom right leg and the bottom left leg. And to do that, to make this specific 120-degree angle that's equal between these three circles, 120 times 3 is 360, so that gives us the full circle. We're going to use the circular pattern. So the first thing you need to do to use the circular pattern, and this is actually just like kind of a preference thing, move these dimensions out of the way. They don't need to be there at all, and they actually kind of make things a little bit more confusing. So go ahead and just move these way out of the way. You've already set the dimension, so we're not going to have to deal with it. And then you're going to click and highlight those two circles that you created before, because those are the things that we're going to be creating the circular pattern with. So let's go ahead then and choose the circular pattern. And if you do that, actually it defaults to be perfect. So it defaults to give us 3 copies, and it's going around in this counterclockwise manner, clockwise manner. And that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So if that's what we want, all we have to do is just click out, and it'll set those in place. All right, so now that we have our circles where they're supposed to be, the next thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we have the correct distance away from the center for each of these circles. So you can see for the one that we use the linear pattern for, we have this dimension. It's the 26.71, but there's nothing that's connecting here and here. Now, if you notice, for this one that we use the linear pattern on, we used a construction line to actually make the connection, and then we dimensioned that construction line. So remember, when we're extruding, the construction lines don't come into place, they're just used for reference. So this is a great example of where using a construction line could help out quite a bit. So we're going to go ahead and do that. To create a construction line, you do line and then construction. We're going to start in the center here, and we're going to go to the center right here. And then we're going to do the same thing here and click to the center right here. And you can see that it's actually, it already did that, it's 26.71, but we can dimension these lines, 26.71, and then we can dimension the other line, oops, dimension this other line, 26.71, and now we have those things set. So you see how that turned black? Now, if we try to move these things, nothing moves because we have those things dimensioned. So all these distances are the same, and they're all dimensioned on here. So now that we have our circles and we have them perfectly spread out in dimension, the next thing we need to do is we need to connect these circles together with an arc, and then once we have that arc, then we can trim out on the insides and move on to extruding. So we have to think about what kind of arc we would use. In this case, if we're connecting 2 circles and we want to set the radius according to this blueprint needs to be 15.53. So you can see we're going to connect here, and then we're going to set the radius, that third click, to be 15.53. The 3-point arc is going to be the one that you're going to use. So if we go to our arcs and we choose the 3-point arc, the first click needs to be on the outside circle, somewhere kind of towards the bottom third of the circle. The second click will be on this outside radius, kind of towards the middle. And then the third click sets that radius, make it close to 15, but remember, we have to dimension this anyways, so after you click that third time, and you choose the dimension tool or press D, and set that to be 15.5. I believe 15.5 was the number. Sorry, 15.53. So I can edit this, 15.53, and then press enter. Okay, so I've got that first arc connecting this top circle to the right circle, but I need 2 more of those. So you could use the arc tool again, but that would be kind of like doing too much, because you already know that this circular pattern tool can do that for you, and it can do it perfectly spaced out. So if we do our circular pattern, but this time we choose the arc, look what it does. 1, so the one that we already have, 2, and then 3, and it's exactly where we want them to be. So save yourself some time, use the linear pattern, and boom, now we have this gray part showing that this is all connected, but unfortunately we won't be able to extrude the parts that we want because there's some lines that are actually breaking them up. So we need to trim these inside lines out so that we can extrude everything together. So that's the last thing we need to do. We'll choose the trim tool or press the M key for a shortcut. And we're just trimming out the inside part of the outer circle. You have to do 6 total clicks to eliminate all those. Those are the only lines that we really need to eliminate. So then once we've got that, we can confirm this sketch. And what you should see when you hover over this region and when you click in that region is it'll highlight where we want that fidget spinner to actually be. And then we can either do extrude or hold Shift and press E. That'll extrude. Remember, the default extrude is 25. We do not want a 25 millimeter fidget spinner. We only want this to be 7 millimeters tall. And then we'll press confirm. All right, now that we've confirmed that, we have what's starting to look like a fidget spinner, but it has these really sharp edges. And we don't want these sharp edges. They look kind of weird. You know, fidget spinners are usually kind of rounded. So we're going to learn a new feature tool. That feature tool is called Fillet. So fillet is familiar. There is a sketch fillet, which rounds sketches, the corners of sketches. This fillet, the feature fillet, will round edges of 3D objects. So if you start in the center, and you're going to have to click these like very specifically, or else it'll give you an error. So we're going to fillet the insides first. And you want to set your radius to be 3.5 millimeters if it's not already. That's half of the height. We're going to have to do this on the top and the bottom. So that's the first things we need to do. But then we also want to fillet kind of these outside edges as well. So if we click on these outside edges, we can do all this. Okay, so now you can see that the top side is filleted nicely, but we also need to do that for the bottom side as well. So again, start with the insides, making sure that you're clicking on only that line. And then finally, the outside circles. And if you do that correctly, when you confirm the fillet, you should have this nice fidget spinner. Okay? So take your time with the filleting. If you don't click the right lines, you're going to run into errors, you're going to have some problems. But make sure you can do that because filleting is something that's really nice, especially when you're designing things that are going to be used. You don't want those sharp edges on them. You really want them to be nice and smoothed out. But this is your fidget spinner. So this is a fidget spinner we could print out and put 4 ball bearings in and put a couple caps on and have a functioning model. So there you go. Do not forget to share this with me when you're finished. So my email is amesewicz@crphs.org. Then you click share, and once you've done that, then you are all set for today. See you in class, in our next class.